While the United States of America gained independence following the pivotal year of 1776 and received recognition in 1783, the historical roots of this nation run far deeper. Centuries ago, the initial inhabitants established their presence in the American continent. The precise manner in which the Native Americans initially inhabited these lands remains somewhat elusive, yet one prevailing theory suggests a migration from Eurasia dating back some 30 millennia. This migration is believed to have occurred via a land bridge known as Beringia, linking Siberia to North America during the last ice age. The migration persisted until approximately 10,000 years ago, when the conclusion of a glacial period led to the submergence of the land bridge beneath the rising ocean waters. The indigenous peoples, known as the Paleoamericans, gradually migrated further into the Americas, establishing tribes and nations as they went. These diverse groups forged intriguing civilizations, each with its own unique cultural identity. Among the notable cultures that flourished in these lands were the Adena culture, Iroquois culture, Coles Creek culture, Puebloan culture, and Mississippian culture. Another region of what is now the United States boasts a unique and captivating history. Hawaii, for instance, remained uninhabited until the 1st century AD. It was the Polynesian people who first settled these islands between the 1st and 10th centuries. European colonization of Hawaii commenced in the 15th century, marking a significant shift in the island's trajectory. In 1492, a Spanish expedition led by the Italian explorer Christopher Columbus embarked on a westward journey, seeking a new trade route to the Far East. However, they inadvertently landed in what Europeans would later refer to as the New World. Following Columbus's voyage, subsequent decades witnessed an influx of ships sailing westward to establish colonies and trade outposts. The Spanish swiftly began constructing their American empire, utilizing islands like Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Hispaniola as strategic bases for vast expansion. Meanwhile, France established colonies in eastern North America and several Caribbean islands, along with small coastal regions of South America. Portugal laid claim to Brazil, while the eastern seacoast of North America saw primarily English colonization in the 17th century, alongside smaller Dutch and Swedish settlements. The first successful English colony, Jamestown, was founded in 1607 along the James River in Virginia. In the late 17th century, a new influx of settlers arrived, establishing commercial agriculture primarily centered around tobacco cultivation. Despite occasional conflicts with Native American tribes, the colonies experienced rapid expansion as more settlers arrived, leading to a significant increase in population. Each of the 13 American colonies boasted slightly varied governmental structures. Typically, a colony was governed by a governor appointed from London, who exercised control over the administration. This governor depended on a locally elected legislature to levy taxes and enact laws. During the 18th century, the American colonies experienced rapid growth due to low mortality rates, abundant land, and ample food supplies, which attracted a significant influx of immigrants. Plantations, particularly those cultivating tobacco and rice, relied heavily on African slaves for labor, imported from the British colonies in the West Indies. By the 1770s, African slaves constituted 1/5 of the American population. The issue of independence from Britain did not emerge until the colonies required British military assistance against the French and Spanish powers. The French and Indian War, a consequence of the political evolution of the colonies, was also a component of the broader 7 Years' War. British forces prevailed over the French, resulting in the loss of French colonies and territories in Canada and Louisiana. The war had been costly, and Britain faced financial strain. In response, the British Parliament enacted the Stamp Act of 1765, imposing taxes on the colonies without the consent of their legislatures, sparking controversy. The central question emerged: did Parliament possess the authority to tax Americans who lacked representation in it? Protesting no taxation without representation, the colonists resisted paying the taxes, leading to escalating tensions in the late 1760s and early 1770s. The Boston Tea Party of 1773 marked the onset of the Revolution, occurring in Boston to protest against the new tea tax. In swift response, Parliament enacted the Coercive Acts the following year, stripping Massachusetts of its long-standing self-governance and imposing military rule, inciting widespread outrage and defiance across all 13 colonies. Representatives from each colony convened the First Continental Congress to synchronize their resistance efforts. The Congress advocated for a boycott of British trade, outlined a catalog of rights and grievances, and petitioned the king for their resolution. Initially, the focus wasn't on independence, but when this appeal yielded no results, the Second Continental Congress was convened in 1775 to coordinate the defense of the colonies against the British Army. The rebellion against British rule commenced in 1775, with the 13 colonies declaring their independence in 1776. During the American Revolutionary War, spanning from 1775 to 1783, the United States of America achieved a significant victory by capturing the British invasion army at Saratoga in 1777. This triumph not only secured the northeastern region, but also played a pivotal role in persuading the French to form a military alliance with the United States. France's involvement in the conflict prompted Spain and the Netherlands to join the fray, thereby balancing the military and naval forces on each side, as Britain lacked allies. General George Washington's exceptional organizational skills and administrative prowess were instrumental in coordinating effectively with Congress and state governors. He meticulously selected and mentored senior officers, provided unwavering support and training to his troops, and maintained an idealistic Republican army throughout the American Revolution. The success of the Revolution was solidified with the Peace of Paris in 1783, where the independence of the former colonies was officially recognized. Moreover, the former colonies secured more favorable terms than anticipated, initiating westward expansion and incorporating Amerindian lands beyond the Appalachian Mountains. President Thomas Jefferson brokered a monumental deal in 1803 by acquiring the Louisiana Territory from France. Initially, diplomats dispatched to France were authorized to spend up to $10 million to procure solely New Orleans and, if feasible, the western bank of the Mississippi River. However, the French government proposed that, for an additional $5 million, the entire Louisiana Territory would be sold. President Jefferson endorsed the agreement, effectively doubling the size of the United States. During the mid-19th century, pivotal events unfolded, including Texas's annexation into the Union in 1845. Following a war against the Mexican Empire, the United States acquired significant territories, expanding its domain even further. In 1861, following Abraham Lincoln's election, several southern states seceded from the Union, forming the Confederacy and initiating hostilities against the remaining states. This revolt in the South stemmed from the contentious issue of slavery and its implications for the rights of black people. In 1860, under the leadership of Abraham Lincoln, the United States was on the brink of banning slavery in all its territories. War erupted in April 1861, when secessionist forces launched an attack on Fort Sumter in South Carolina. After 4 years of conflict, the Union emerged victorious, dealing a decisive defeat to the Confederates. Gradually, national unity was restored, and the national government expanded its authority. The 19th century witnessed a surge in economic expansion, marked by the emergence of numerous industries and a concerted focus on infrastructure development. In 1898, the United States found itself embroiled in the American-Spanish War. While Americans achieved victories in some short-term battles, the Treaty of Paris ultimately resulted in significant territorial gains for the United States. The acquisition of the Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Guam further solidified America's growing influence on the global stage. At the dawn of the 20th century, the outbreak of World War I cast its shadow across the globe. Despite initially maintaining a stance of neutrality, the United States found itself drawn into the conflict following German attacks on American ships and revelations of Germany's attempts to enlist Mexico as an ally against the U.S. In response to these provocations, the Americans ultimately joined forces with the Allies in the pursuit of victory. Following these events, the American economy experienced significant growth and prosperity until the onset of the Great Depression in 1929. This catastrophic event sent shockwaves around the world and set the stage for the outbreak of the Second World War. The United States entered the conflict as part of the Allies after the devastating attack on Pearl Harbor by the Japanese Empire on December 7, 1941. Engaging in a two-front war in Europe and the Pacific, Americans fought valiantly while also providing vital supplies to the Soviet Union, including armored vehicles, motorized equipment, and essential food supplies, achieving victories step by step in the Pacific, advancing closer to the Japanese mainland, and following the success of D-Day in Europe in 1944, American forces made significant contributions to the Allied cause. The war finally came to an end in 1945, with Germany surrendering in May and Japan capitulating in September after the devastating atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Following World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union emerged as rival superpowers, ushering in an era known as the Cold War. This period was characterized by indirect confrontations, such as the arms race, proxy conflicts worldwide, including the Korean and Vietnam Wars, as well as extensive propaganda campaigns. The primary objective was to contain the spread of communism. During the 1960s, a surge of civil rights movements swept across the United States, advocating for voting rights and freedom of movement for African Americans and other racial minorities. The Cold War eventually concluded with the collapse of the Soviet Union. Subsequently, the United States shifted its focus to contemporary conflicts in the Middle East. In the early 21st century, the world was shaken by the September 11th attacks orchestrated by al-Qaeda in 2001. Subsequently, the United States became embroiled in wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. By 2008, the nation faced its most severe economic downturn since the Great Depression.